It says we're going live. I'm gonna wait a couple seconds because every time the timing's always different for me, or I don't know. I still should probably create a more proper intro, but we just roll with the awkward starts because I don't know. I guess that's it is just a thing for the show. So, guys, I realize the title is very different from the ordinary, right? Thumbnail's very basic. I literally just put a black background and put in white text Nintendo. Very basic stuff. Got a lot going on right now, as you may be able to tell. Don't even know how many people are going to watch the show. May not be a good start to going full-time YouTube if no one watches the show. But, you know, we're going to try, right? And obviously I'm going to be doing other stuff. I'll give you guys some details. I'm just going to give an opportunity for some people to show up. We'll see how many people do. And then, you know, we're going to do what we're going to do. And that's the plan. So, yeah, I'm gonna let people roll in for a little bit. Again, I'm kind of like worried that like no one's gonna show up because the channel's been doing like worse and worse and worse lately. And I'm not trying to ask for attention. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just telling you the straight facts. Like, fact of the matter, really, which is not a phrase. The numbers for the channel right now have been down over like the last 3 years. Like, that's just where we're at right now. And I got laid off from work, which I've been working a lot more with, which has not helped the channel either. So now we're at a position where even though we've worked really hard at this job that has now laid us off, we're now in a position where like, oh, well, all right, this is it. This is, you know, I mean, I'm not worried, right? So for those that are like, oh man, let's feel bad for Andres. He's screwed. He's gonna starve. I'm not gonna starve. I'm fine. You know, I have a number of different options for work. I have money saved. You know, I do have some income coming in. So I'm not at all screwed. So I don't want people to be like worried for my well-being. But, you know, yes, I gotta find work, right? And, you know, the channel has always been my passion, right? So, you know, I'm going to give it a go, right? I'm going to try and do better than before. Because the channel's doing so bad, I've been wanting to put more effort, but wanting to do better. And I would say throughout the course of this year, I've had moments or periods of time where I've been more consistent than I ever have been. But also with the amount of work I've had, maybe that content hasn't been as inspired as it could be. And then also just where the news cycle is at, just where the world is at. There's so many different circumstances here. But the main point I'm trying to get at is that we're in a transitional phase right now. I don't know if I'm going to do full-time YouTube forever because I don't know how it's going to pan out. I'm sure most of you are aware. Most people can't become full-time YouTubers. It's a very rare thing, right? The fact that we've even had the success that we've had is great. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm in the 1 percentile of people of YouTubers because most people try and fail, right? So, you know, I'm thankful for the audience I have, even if right now things aren't going well for even that. You know, we're gonna go and we're gonna do stuff today. You know, I didn't really put together a full plan, right? The title's not even referencing any Nintendo news for the week. We're gonna talk about Pokemon. We're gonna talk about Mario Kart. We're gonna talk about whatever you guys bring up in the chat. But tonight's just kind of really more about just kind of laying back, chilling, Q&A, whatever comes to mind. And I may need a little bit of time to kind of recover from the workload I've had. You know, I'm definitely suffering from a great deal of burnout. But that's fair. You know, the pace is gonna get picked up, and I got some plans, and I think it's gonna be good. But that's obviously relying on my execution, so we'll see. But now that some people are in the chat, I'm gonna check in with the chat, and then we'll go from there. Unseen. I don't even know what the emoji was. I didn't see it, but I saw that you said a face with raised eyebrows. Raised. Bethany, hey, how are you? Charles Shradell, don't be saddened, buddy, but thank you for being here. Having Hope 5, hello. Moyo Moyo. Metroid Prime Federation Force 2 for Switch launch title. I promise. I will die. Marcus, what's up? Yeah, Bethany. F. Joy CJ. Added me. Sorry you're dealing with this right now. It'll definitely get better. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all good, Ronnie Fazio. Thank you. Thank you, Paul Dune. Okay. Thank you for the good luck, Charles. Okay, SMG Gamer. Thank you for that. Telling me I make great videos. I appreciate that. Don't let your shadow get you, mate. My shadow is always there. It's always following me. It's always there. But, you know, before we, you know, just pick a random topic, Brandon, how are you?
You know, I'm doing okay. You know, I'm working a lot. But this week, no, I won't be, because I have today off, obviously, and tomorrow I will work, and Wednesday I will work, but Thursday is Thanksgiving and we're closed, and Friday I don't work, and Saturday I have asked for off. So I will not have to work Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I'll have a nice little 3-day weekend there, and that'll be nice. So it's gonna be an easier week this week, but you know, I'm just kind of working to get in a better position to just constantly climb the ladder of life. You know, because I'm real far down there on the pay grade, but I'm making my moves. You know, shuffling around my cards or whatever saying you want to say to try to make that a lot better soon. So, you know, just the grind.
Yeah, no, we've all been on the grind lately. I mean, I don't, obviously this is a gaming podcast, so I don't want to get into like global world politics. I was opening the door with my foot. But like, you know, right now in the world in general, right, like a lot of stuff is going on. A lot of people are losing work.
Yep.
You know, it's not just me, right? A lot of people are dealing with a lot of nonsense right now. So, you know, it's tough. Yay, the kids escaped.
Some of the ones of us who have jobs over here working for beans.
For beans.
So,
for beans.
You know, but not for long.
Yeah.
Not for long.
All right. So, Casual Noob Gamer says, Pokemon is fun despite the flaws, and people on Twitter are astonished when I say that. It makes me wonder if people who are complaining are playing the game or going off others' posts. You know, I'm honestly really glad you brought that up, because it is something that's been on my mind as I've played the game. So, we're going to just jump straight into it, okay? So, Pokemon Scarlet Violet came out this Friday. Yes, the game was leaked. A lot of people were talking about it beforehand, and we knew about things. We saw a lot of the Pokemon. They looked really cool, you know, but of course there's been this narrative of Game Freak, you know, the developer, but, you know, the game's being pushed by Pokemon Company, which is a huge company, and Pokemon's like one of the greatest, largest, most well-off media franchises ever, right? So you'd think there's tons of budget there. And yet, when you look at the games made by Game Freak, when you compare that to the rest of the industry, the budget clearly isn't there. The modern visuals clearly aren't there. It's just not on the same level as modern games. So you have that narrative. You have what we've seen of games on Switch. You know, they leave something to be desired from a graphics and performance perspective. And then we see the promise of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, true open world Pokemon games for the first time. That's quite a moniker, open world, right? Like that says big things. It's kind of what we want for games. It's what we wanted for Pokemon since the beginning. Like this, in a way, is like the quintessential Pokemon adventure. Like it's what we've been dreaming about for years. So we're actually finally getting it, and I don't know if that's really hit everyone. We've gotten it, but the game has come out, and the reception of the game is mixed. And what people are saying, when you kind of dig through the reviews and previews and such, is that, well, the gameplay loop is actually really good. There's a lot of things about this game that are done really well. People seem to like the open structure. People seem to like being able to choose the different tasks you do out of order. The catching mechanics, the roaming mechanics, everything about this game in terms of gameplay has been well spoken for. Like there's a lot of things that people are praising when it comes to the gameplay. But when we look at the graphics, when we look at the performance of the game, that's where things start to fall apart. And to your point, casual noob gamer, what we see on social media, you see people kind of tearing the game apart. Really, taking this as an opportunity to say, man, you shouldn't play Pokemon. Man, this is such a huge company. Like, how dare they put out this garbage? How dare this be approved for the eShop? And you see videos of character models getting all warped, and you see people falling through just invisible holes and clipping and huge frame rate issues, and the game stuttering and stopping and crashing and files getting corrupted. All of these things. Something that I think needs to be said is that when you're on the internet, when you're on social media, the posts you in general will see, save for your friends, right? But you're also going to see popular posts. So those are popular posts. Those aren't necessarily what's representative of the masses. So the point I'm getting at here is that when you're on social media, the opinion you're going to see is oftentimes a vocal minority. Now, that doesn't mean most people can't share a similar opinion, but the point I'm ultimately getting at here is that after I've personally played the game and I've experienced it, I haven't played through the entire game, so do take it with a grain of salt, but I put in 10 hours into the game. I feel like it's a decent amount of time to kind of get a good grip on the mechanics and everything it has to offer. Well, not everything, but the basic gist of the
basic
world,
game feel.
Right? And after having played it, I'm going to tell you the straight truth. The game, from a gameplay perspective, might be the best Pokemon game ever. Like, pure gameplay, pure fun factor, this is incredible. But from the graphics and performance perspective, yes, there are issues. The frame rate drops a lot, and it's kind of random sometimes. So, that can be bad. It can be off-putting. So, I'm not necessarily a big frame rate stickler. But when you're playing a game and you notice stutter, when you notice like a delay, that's a problem. Because it takes away from your immersion. But sometimes it's just occasional, right? Sometimes you may not even realize it. But in Pokemon Scarlet Violet, it is noticeable, and sometimes it's worse than others. Sometimes I think they just optimized poorly. They didn't pay enough attention. Like, for example, and I may make a video on this week, but probably I'm full time now, so I have more time to make more videos.
Yeah.
But what's one of the earlier scenes of the game? They're in the classroom, and what's cool is that I know some people speak ill of the visuals, but I actually think the graphics for this game are actually kind of good in a lot of places. But
I think it's extremely, from what I've seen. Now, disclaimer. I haven't played the game.
Haven't played the game.
Maybe you can convince me to buy the game, but that's gonna be hard to sell.
So,
but that's up to you.
I will get to that. Okay, I will get to that because I'm not saying this game is for everyone. But the point I'm getting at here is there's this classroom scene where you see 20 kids, and I think all the models are actually pretty well produced. Like the geometry of each character, they have personality. They're there.
Yeah, the models are fine.
Like the environments look good, at least inside buildings. But
that's fine.
3 or 4 of the characters that are more important characters, you can see that they're animated quite nicely. They don't see anything weird. But then there's like 10 to 16 other characters, and you'll see them kind of kicking their legs in the desks. So, and it's weird.
It's 5 FPS.
Correct, right? So what's weird is, had they just had them been not moving at all and just sitting there, it would have looked better. And this is why it's weird. They were actually ambitious enough to animate them and make the world feel more living, breathing by having things going on, like several of the students in the classroom, even though they're not important characters, kind of moving around, kicking their feet, acting like kids, which is cool. But when it's at 5 frames per second and it's right in front of you, it's very, very off-putting because it's like it looks weird. So that's what's strange about it. Because the fact that they went and tried to put that animation shows ambition. We're trying to make this feel like a very believable world. But when the frame rate is complete doo-doo garbage right in front of you, you can't mask it, and it actually ruins it. So it has an adverse effect.
This is why I might just not buy the game. It's like things like this, like the frame rate issues, would just really bug me. I know, because I just
and that's
even in playing Xenoblade, which most of the time the performance is fine. There are occasional areas, I'd say like 10 to 20% of the game, even like it's a significant portion that has drops. They're not terrible, but I noticed them and they bug me. And I've noticed online that nobody really seems to talk about this at all. Most people seem to think it performs pretty fine, and I do think overall it performs great. But there are some areas that just like bug me because the performance is low, and that seems to be like some of the best performance in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So I'm like, I don't know if I can play this game and actually have fun.
I think that's the issue. Like I'm mentioning a moment that's bad, and I've noticed a lot of moments. There are times when I'm catching a Pokemon and I'm close to the floor. And what happens is it clips in after I've caught the Pokemon, and I'll see like under the floor. And when I say that, what I mean is like you can see what's under the floor, what hasn't been programmed. It's just all invisible nothingness. So it takes away from your immersion of the game because you're like, well, that's not supposed to be there. And that happens occasionally. And then you'll notice stutters and like that. So all of these things you would suggest that the game feels very janky. And I'll tell you that when I first started the game, I was like, okay, I see what they were going for here, and I really like what they're going for, but it took me a little while to get used to the frame rate, which was not super consistent. So what I'm getting at is, at first I wasn't like all in on this, but as I played, it wasn't completely abysmal. It was passable. I got more and more into it, and once I finally got into the actual flow of the gameplay, yes, there's frame rate issues, but they're not terrible. If I guess what I was, that's a subjective term. But my point is that I found myself still excited to explore the world. I was like, oh, that's a new Pokemon. Let me catch it. Oh, that's a new Pokemon. Let me catch it. Whoa, what's that shiny thing over there? Okay, I'm going over there. Ooh, there's another shiny thing all the way down there. Let me go over there. And then and then it's also kind of like when you jump into the battles, the worlds are still fully there. So an interesting sort of transition we saw is that in previous Pokemon games, when you did a battle, it took you like to a separate room that you could pretend was in the same world, but it was a separate room, not in the same world. And then with Legends Arceus, a huge jump they made, the game that came out this January, you could jump into the battle and it would be in the same world you're in. However, all Pokemon in the overworld would disappear. In Scarlet and Violet, they're still there. So sometimes you'll be in a battle and they may be like right there. And sometimes that's like cool, but sometimes it can sometimes it can look a little awkward. Like I like that they did it, but I think there's some polishing that needs to be done to kind of fix it. I feel like it
would have been fun if the characters like reacted to like the battle and like just like stood around and watched or something instead of just like walking straight through the fight, clipping through all the characters and effects completely unfazed.
Something that I want to stress, though, the initial point I was trying to make is that there are issues, right? And I think some people it'll bother more than others. I'm a longtime Pokemon fan, right? So I think intrinsically, I am just more willing to put up with it. That said,
very true.
That said, I also say if you've paid attention, if you watched the videos put on the channel, I've already been erring on the side of like caution going into this. There were things about this game that didn't have me as excited as previous games, and I have skipped games before. So, I'm not like a 100% like I will play any Pokemon game no matter what. I'm playing the game because it's good. That's a fact. It's a good game. It's a really good game that has a lot of issues. So, I think it is going to depend on person to person. Brandon is a huge graphics frame rate like stickler. So for him, who's not even a big Pokemon fan to begin with,
exactly,
I don't know if I should recommend it for him. But I'll also say, from a gameplay perspective, this is, I think, the best Pokemon game ever. Because I see here, Bethany, I honestly do. I think like from gameplay point of view, it's like really good. Because one, it's actually like a true open world. So you're in this massive map, and you can go wherever you want, and that freedom is amazing. Like, I mean, I'm always biased towards adventure games, because I love adventure games. I love the being able to escape in these massive worlds, and Pokemon's always been an escape for me. So now they've kind of combined it, right? Like, Pokemon's always been cool because of the characters and the creatures in that world and the battles and sometimes the story, but anyway. But now you put it into this world, and you can see all these Pokemon, you can interact with them. Right. That's super cool. It takes it to another level beyond Legends Arceus, and that I appreciate. So, like, there's a lot there. There's a lot of random little things that they've done that I actually think are pretty cool. Like, for example,
it feels like the game has a lot going for it. It feels like they needed, like, I wouldn't even say a few months. I think like at least a year more to finish this game, because I think that it's kind of a double whammy. Not only does it perform bad and have glitches, but even if it did perform well, the game doesn't look amazing. Like, sometimes it looks okay. Like, there are times where it looks like, okay, this is the lowest passable bar for a Switch game. That's like the best that this game has to offer.
See, the thing is, I don't share that opinion, though.
Terrible.
I really don't share that opinion, though. Honestly, I think there are a lot of moments in the game that looks really pretty. Like, to be frank with you.
It looks...
I think this narrative that just looks like straight garbage most of the time is just false.
I think there are times where the art style looks okay, but the game never looks technically up to par for what the Switch should be able to do.
And I think that's also something where you and I have disagreements sometimes, because you look at things from more of a technical perspective, and I look at things from more of an artistic perspective. Like, I just look at something and I'm like, is this aesthetically pleasing? Does this look cool?
I mean,
if so,
it's
okay,
just
great.
Disappointing because it looks okay. Like, aesthetically, it's fine, but the technical part doesn't hold up to back it up. So it just ends up looking like a game that could have run honestly on like the original Xbox or like the Wii or like very old hardware.
Not the Wii.
I think you misunderstand the Wii's power.
No, I think you should play the game and decide that for you. If anything, the only reason you should play the game, Brand, is just to see that your opinion is wrong. You're like, oh, you know what? There's some parts that look pretty good here. Like,
no, I mean, like, I've seen the game. I don't need to play the game to have seen the game. Like, I've seen a lot of the game.
But you also know what I mean, though. Okay, when you look at a game on YouTube,
in terms of gameplay, yes,
and you see the compression,
how the game
and we have it in front of you, it's very different. Like, the character
models
in the
game,
game,
a little worse because at least the compression gives it some sort of anti-aliasing. The game runs at like no resolution.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's not that bad. Again, this is all subjective, right? I think the game has a lot of pretty moments. And
I think there's times where the game looks so basic where it's just pretty much just colors, and then that looks good because the colors are okay. And then the game looks good. But on no way does this game ever technically look like it should be on the Switch. There are times where because of the basic ass
okay, well, let me ask you a question.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay, and this is okay. I know how I feel. I also know what's reality, right? While I may be more artistically inclined than technical perspective inclined, I also have a better understanding of these technical things than the average Joe, right? Average Joe may not be saying much. I'm not comparing myself to you per se, but I do have a somewhat decent understanding. I mean, I've played the game, okay? I feel like when you look at the overall consensus that we see online, I think that skews people's perspective on this game, right? There are issues, but I think when we see everything people are talking about, it makes it seem worse than it actually is. So let me ask you this question, and your answer to this question may or may not validate what I'm thinking right now, okay?
Okay.
Is this game worse looking than Legends Arceus?
Ooh. Probably not, because Legends Arceus was actual dog shit for graphics, so... other than the skybox. This game at least sometimes looks passable for Switch, as I said.
So, all right, I'll say this: you passed because I've seen people say that this game looks worse than Legends Arceus, and that's not even remotely close to true. The game looks night and day better than Legends Arceus.
Maybe. I mean, Arceus may run at a higher resolution. I'm not sure because the resolution
it has less performance issues. I'll tell you that.
It looks bad.
But
yeah, that's true.
But there's also a lot more going on in Scarlet and Violet. There's a lot more texture detail, a lot more variety. World's a lot more massive, a lot more going on in the environments, more particle effects.
I will say, I don't think the developers are lazy because I do think their art design can be good. And I think that they try to do a variety of textures and they try to like blend their textures very well, and they try not to do that like tiling texture thing that Arceus has all over the place.
There's still some parts that look kind of basic from that perspective.
Yeah, there are some places like the desert area. There's nothing there.
There are some parts that look more plain than the others. I agree with that. It's ridiculous.
But there are times when they try. The thing is, I don't know if their engine just can't handle it or they just don't have time to make their engine handle it. But any time it seems that this game has to load anything, it struggles. And it doesn't seem to be able to stream in textures very well. And it just feels like the environment starts to break apart because their engine just can't render everything properly.
Check this out, right? Having played the game, something I've noticed, it goes back to the classroom scene again, but not the issue of the classroom scene, but not the classroom per se. So when you play the game and you're running through the world, you'll notice they've made efforts to make the world feel like a living, breathing world. So what do I mean? I mean that every blade of grass, every flower, every bush moves with the wind. Everything is moving,
and that looks nice.
The world isn't stale. Like everything has a movement to it. Everything is reactive, and you'll see wind too. You'll see wind blowing leaves. Like you can see weather effects. Like all of this is happening, yet the game is like kind of chugging frames, right? Like so they went for effects to make the world feel more like a living, breathing world. Versus other games that would have none of that, and it would just be a very stale world where you'll see a bush but it won't move, right? You'll see grass but it won't move. Some games have moving grass, but sometimes like it's always different. Like for example,
depends on what the developer goes for.
It depends, right? Like sometimes you'll see
Xenoblade doesn't have moving grass, but it's still an amazing looking game.
Right. It just kind of the ground textures are kind of basic, but you know.
In Xenoblade 3, I'd say most of the time they're really good. For Switch.
Gotta go back and play it now. I've already forgotten.
I was just playing it earlier. It looked really good.
It depends. But yeah, it doesn't have like... The world of Xenoblade... Actually, I'm glad you brought up Xenoblade. It's a good comparison. So the world of Xenoblade, when you look at it, you're like, holy crap, now I wish Pokemon looked like this, right? Like it looks pretty awesome. Huge worlds with really cool structures. Like the worlds are majestic, but the worlds don't feel like living, breathing worlds. You don't see like trees swaying in the background. You don't see like the grass swaying. You don't see wind and things like that. Like there aren't like little details that make the world feel like a real world.
But then again, there's Breath of the Wild, which pulls off all these same things with much better graphics and higher simulation accuracy with much more simulations too. So running at a much better frame rate and overall just looking better.
Yeah, Scarlet and Violet feels like they took the Breath of the Wild engine and they shoved Pokemon in it.
Feels like they took their engine and then tried to do Breath of the Wild on it and then realized that their engine can't handle that.
It has a Breath of the Wild grass, just not as much of it, which is also interesting.
It's also just way less polygons per like grass blade as well. Like you can tell, the way it handles lighting as well is not as good looking. Like the shadowing in Breath of the Wild looked a lot better.
I mean, I think Breath of the Wild looks a lot better than a lot of things, and it was made for the Wii U, so you know,
which is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. But let's continue on the chat here. Ronnie Fazio, can we appreciate how good Flamigo is? A flying fighting type with a base attack of 115 and a base speed of 90 that you can get at the start of the game is awesome. I haven't even gotten the Flamigo yet, but now I want it. That sounds pretty cool.
Those are indeed words that mean things to some people.
You know, that's how probably people feel about whenever we talk about like the technical specs and stuff. Like,
Yeah, I bet.
The AMX RG480 Radeon 10,000 with turbo graphics.
It's got 1,000 Ps. Wow.
Super strong. Yeah. Moving on with the chat though. Charles Stradell. That's the crazy thing about it. Everyone knows it's very bad performance-wise, but so many seem to like it nonetheless. Even people that hated Sword that hadn't any of these performance issues. Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, Scarlet and Violet
literally traded in Sword after like 10 hours. I was like, well,
Scarlet and Violet compared to Sword and Shield is a massive difference. Like, they're trying to do so much more with Scarlet and Violet. And it's also
I think Scarlet and Violet could be a good game. It is a good game. Annoyed. For me, like those kind of issues, it'd be like asking me to play a game, but then the only condition is
Brandon, can I ask you a question?
Every 5 seconds, they get to poke me really hard.
I think I noticed this the other day.
They just get to poke me constantly.
I need to
That's
ask
how
you this
performance
question.
issues are. It's just like pokes.
I need to ask you this question.
Okay, ask me.
Are you on a hammock?
No. This is a curtain.
Oh, you're on a curtain. I almost felt like you were laying down in a hammock.
This is a curtain behind me.
Okay.
It's like halfway curtain. There's like a ledge here.
You know, that makes a lot more sense because you probably wouldn't be laying down while holding the phone like that the entire time. No.
My arms are resting on my legs, and just kind of like lean back.
Cool. Now I know. And if anyone else is wondering, he's not on a hammock.
Wow, trivia.
Yeah, there we go. Let's see, moving on here. DE Fox, I might be getting Violet for Christmas, but I'm not going to even peel off the plastic till the games are patched. It may be patched by that point.
I mean, if they get patched, then I'll buy the game. Maybe I'll wait for the patch. You're not exactly selling me on buying the game tomorrow.
Oh, right. My job is supposed to get you to buy the game so you can play with me. I forgot about that. We'll see. Maybe my strategy is to not really want to care. I don't really care if you buy it, bro. You can do what you want. I mean, like, is it the best Pokemon game ever? Kinda. Is it the most? Actually, you know what? I need to speak on this point. Because I actually find this to be very interesting, kind of poetic. The very first Pokemon games, Red and Blue, were complete disasters. There was glitches and shit going on all over the place in those games. Yet those games became a viral sensation that people grew up on, and they are the reason why Pokemon is like one of the largest things of all time. So when you think about that, I
would say, what kind of glitches happened in Red and Blue? Were they as severe and just broken feeling as this game? Because I feel like the nature
I'm gonna have to go back and do
like
some research, but there was weird shit, man. Like,
we're also talking about a game that like pioneered an entire genre and was doing all this new stuff, not only for the series, which didn't exist, but obviously for gaming in general.
So,
whereas Pokemon Company is just trying to badly emulate other games and get a slight sense of modern stuff, and is failing to even do things that people have been doing for years. I
am not trying to be an apologist for Pokemon Company here, okay? I'm not trying to
I'm just being the devil's advocate here.
Right. But what I am trying to highlight though is that despite the fact that there were huge hardware limitations and there were weird glitches and issues with Red and Blue, those games spurred on the entire universe of Pokemon, right? And Scarlet and Violet, we're now seeing. We haven't seen all the sales numbers yet, but all signs point towards it being incredibly promising. is that people are enjoying these games despite the very frequent issues with how it performs and such. And so in that way, it's very similar. And so what's kind of interesting is that the gameplay loop of Red and Blue is what people fell in love with, and the gameplay loop of Scarlet and Violet is what people are falling in love with. It's what I've fallen in love with so far with the experience, right? Like, even though going into it, you know, I wasn't even in the greatest of mood. I really wanted it to kind of just floor me, which it's Pokemon, so I wasn't actually expecting that. And at first it didn't. I just kind of, you know, chugged on because it's like I have to play it. And then after a little bit, I was like, oh, okay, this is not that bad. And then once I was actually playing it, I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. I love this game.
I think the problem is, do you want a game that's not that bad, or do you want a game that's actually good?
What I'm trying to tell you, Brandon, is it's really good. Like the game is really fun, and it's so fun. I don't care about the frame rate. I don't care about the fact that there are some parts of the game that look like bland as fuck.
But it's just, my point is, it's inexcusable. Like, imagine a world where Breath of the Wild had the exact same gameplay, but looked like ass and ran like ass and had a bajillion glitches, even though there are occasional glitches in Breath of the Wild. They're not very common. I never got any of them. Though I've seen some weird ones on Twitter.
This
imagine a world where Breath of the Wild had the same gameplay, but it ran and looked like Legends Arceus. Would it be a good game? Yes. Would it be the game of the year, best game of all time that Breath of the Wild was?
But Scarlet and Violet is a 77 on Metacritic.
Yeah, I know, but it could be so much more, so easily.
That's what's crazy, though. You're right. If Scarlet and Violet had, like, I don't think it needed a year, but let's say it just basically the game ran as intended, where there weren't frame rate issues, there weren't weird glitches. Let's say all that was the case. I legitimately think Scarlet and Violet would be a true viable contender for Game of the Year. Granted, it wouldn't be a part of this game of the Game Awards show because at what point in the year it came out. But like when I would, like, from a personal perspective, I would be like, this is incredible.
I think it would be good, but I still think the visual makeup, even if running as intended, would be just fine. But, you know, I think it would be a lot better, like way, way better if the frame rate was good, the glitches weren't there, Pokemon didn't, and other characters didn't run at no frames per second right in front of the camera. If things like those were fine and the game ran at 30 and, you know, even Xenoblade has some distant rendering that runs at lower frame rates, that's fine. But, like, if it ran like Xenoblade and looked the same, I think it would be passable graphically. Currently, I think it is completely unacceptably horrible. But I think if they fixed that, it would then be passable. And the gameplay, I won't comment on, you say is amazing. So then you would have, according to you, amazing gameplay and passable graphics, which would lead to a good game. But I think, imagine a world where you have amazing gameplay and actually amazing graphics, like we get for Breath of the Wild and Xenoblade and Mario and all these other series that, by the way, make way less money than Pokemon does.
And that's what's insane. So, you know, it's kind of funny you bring that up, right? So, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm talking about if Pokemon Scarlet and Violet had a solid performance and it had, you know, no glitches. Like, I do think it should be considered like one of the best games of the year. And to be frank with you, I actually think the experience I'm having with the game is definitely rivaling one of my best experiences of the year.
I would have no hesitation. I'd be picking up tomorrow if that was the case.
But I'd
be enjoying it.
But I want to be clear, right? Because I know sometimes I can jump between ideas and sometimes I'm not clear. This isn't going to be my personal game of the year, right? And I don't think objectively it is the best game. You know, there are a number of games that are better. Xenoblade, for example, if we're talking about Nintendo, right? But I also think that even though, from a critical perspective, there are games that are definitely better than Pokemon, that doesn't mean it's not deserving of its sales, if that makes sense. What I'm getting at is that Pokemon is more mainstream. Pokemon appeals to a larger audience. There are more people that resonate with Pokemon over, say, Xenoblade, for example. Now, I also think that Xenoblade hasn't been given the most fair shake. I think if more people gave it the opportunity, it could do better, right?
Yeah.
But there's a reason.
Incredible.
But there's a reason why Pokemon's so successful. It's not. There's a number of reasons, really. One, they had an incredible viral sensation with Red and Blue, and they built off of that. They have an anime, they have movies, they have merchandise, and they have trading cards, and all of these things build off of each other. If you're a fan of Pokemon, if you see a Pokemon card, you might, oh, that's cool, right? And you're gonna think of that card. And then you might see a meme of like Charizard and Pikachu. Or, for example, right before the games came out, guess who finally won the Pokemon World Championship? Ash Ketchum. Did you notice the news articles? Did you notice people talking about it? This is a cartoon character, and people were talking about it as if like LeBron James finally won the NBA World Championship. Like it was that kind of conversation point.
Crazy.
And what's crazy about it is that these different things lead to more sales for the games. Pokemon Go leads to more sales for the mainline games. The spin-offs as well. All these different things that we see Pokemon branch off to, it captures a different part of the consumer base. And it brings in more to the mainline series. And over time, over generations, that audience is built and built and built. So one of the reasons why Xenoblade, right, is never going to sell like Pokemon is, well, one, it's a saturated market, right? Pokemon's kind of captured that huge audience already. But then also, brain fart. My brain just completely fell off. What was I gonna say? Right, Xenoblade, right? It hasn't. The market's saturated. It can't really achieve the levels of Pokemon without doing something absolutely bonkers, insane, and getting incredibly lucky. But it doesn't have like a movie franchise, an anime franchise. It doesn't have like a trading card. There's merchandising, but it's not to the same level as Pokemon. All these things build off of each other, right? So not many people know about Pokemon. I mean, not many people know about Xenoblade, I should say. So my point is that all these things market Pokemon more, right? And kind of the weird challenge for Game Freak is that they are expected to have a new generation of Pokemon every 3 years at the same time every year. No exceptions. Scarlet and Violet needed to come out at this time. And that's kind of the sad part. I've seen a lot of conversation online that says that this is Game Freak's fault. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because the fact of the matter is, it's time for a new generation. The Pokemon anime is ended. They're gonna have a new anime in a new region with new Pokemon based off Paldea. And they're going to continue to move on. The trading cards are coming out for the new Pokemon that are coming out. The movies, they're getting those ready as well. Merchandising is coming out as well. So the games are the core of all of this. The games need to come out when they come out because of everything else. If the games get delayed, all of this gets delayed, and they can't afford to do that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Because of all of this, the world of Pokemon is so huge.
They just don't want to.
We'll get to that. But the point is that they're with where they're at right now. To continue this cycle, they have to come out with the games when they do. And that creates a huge stress, a huge challenge to produce games like this. And when I think about it, I actually am really impressed that they were able to come out with a quality game like Legends Arceus this January, and then still follow that up with Scarlet and Violet in November. And even though it is definitely an unpolished mess, it's a really, really, really fun unpolished mess that's not so much of a mess that I would call entirely broken. I think this notion that the game is broken is really just an exaggeration that's been perpetuated by social media and people complaining. It's bad, but it's not unplayable.
Technically.
Yes, it is playable. Okay. Have you ever played Roblox?
No, but I've seen people play it.
Okay. Have you ever played Ark on like a PlayStation 4?
I played Ark on the Switch, the original version, before the new port.
Right, okay. That was an unplayable mess. Okay,
That was an unplayable mess.
Scarlet and Violet is not even.
It's better than
it's
that.
not even the same stratosphere.
But to
Okay?
be fair, I don't think I've ever seen a port that bad to anything. That was just terrible. Like, that arc was just bad. Like, that N64 could have rendered a better game than Arc.
Yeah, it's insane. But also, what's insane is that we saw that they created a new version of Arc, and it just looks leaps and bounds better.
Yeah.
It looks better than
That one
the
actually
PS4
pretty
and Xbox One versions. Yeah. Okay, I always
some ways.
get confused with the Xbox names because Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox Series. But yeah. It's crazy. Anyway, let's just continue on the chat here. I saw I got a super chat. I haven't even seen that yet. Let me see if I can still find it. All right, there we go. So a little while ago already, about 10 minutes. Taker610 gave me a nice little super chat. Thank you very much, Taker. And Taker says, Zelda team to Game Freak. Do we even code, bro? It goes back to what I was saying though, that they have themselves
help them out, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they helped out a little bit, Legends Arceus, I think, but I want to check the credits for Scarlet and Violet. I wonder if they helped out with that too. But it goes back to what I'm saying though, where Game Freak has themselves in a situation where they're expected to come out with a game every 3 years. I mean, more than every 3 years, right? Because Legends Arceus came out this January. Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl came out in November, but they outsourced that to another developer. And then they had DLC. So that was a content that came out for the 3-year window between Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. So Sword and Shield comes out 2019. So we have the 2020 holiday season and 2021 holiday season to worry about before 20. Yeah, that's it. So there's a 2-year gap that they have to kind of satisfy. So in 2020, what they do, they gave us DLC, which sort of satisfied like that third version, which is easier to do than a full-on new game, so that helps.
Yeah.
And then for 2021, I was really happy because like, okay, great, outsource Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, perfect. Have someone else do a remake. It's a remake. The blueprint's already there. In hindsight, I actually wish they put more work into it because it's kind of basic. But we got Legends Arceus instead. But what really bothered me about that is that Legends Arceus, fantastic game, that came out 2 months after Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Has sold amazingly well. It's different enough. It's fine. They both did great. But they really could have waited. Everyone expected them to wait for finally to push up the generation, but they chose not to. And part of the reason I thought they would do this is because when you take a look at the anime, they weren't following the same sort of structure they used to. So I thought they were actually going to position the anime to where the anime and the mainline games didn't have to be perfectly in sync with each other. Yet here we are, where they still keep into that same sort of cycle. And I brought it up in one of my my tweets earlier today, though, right? They could just release a filler arc. You know, if they're that worried about like kind of keeping the anime and the video game series in sync, they could release a filler arc. Heck, they could even have cards about the filler arc. It could be its own thing. Remember the Orange Islands? Yo, you don't watch Pokemon. Chat. Do you remember the Orange Islands? Where Ash actually won a championship back in the day? What if they did something like that to sort of tide things over until the games were ready? And actually, the moment I think about it, when we go back to previous generations, they didn't come out every year. That's more of a new thing. Well, generations will come out every year, but they have a game that comes out every year. But generations sometimes were sometimes longer than 3 years. It's become the case now where a generation only is 3 years, and they have something come out every single year for the mainline series. Not talking about spin-offs. I would love it if they were just kind of change that a little bit, because I do think the quality of the games are obviously being hurt. If Scarlet and Violet came out in March, that's what, 4 months of time to, iron out all the glitches, improve the frame rate a little bit. Like, they could have done that. Maybe it wouldn't have been perfect, but it would have been far better than what it is now. And this whole narrative of criticism would have been wrong, and then people would have just been like, "Oh, well, the national dex, screw you, Pokemon Company." They would have worried about that fake controversy. It's not fake. I understand people want more Pokemon, but I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a tough situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think there's a lot of things they could do. I wonder about a world where Legends Arceus wasn't made. They just focused all of their efforts into Scarlet and Violet and just made that like the best Pokemon game ever, and even maybe included more mechanics from Legends Arceus. Uh, so, um,
Yeah.
I feel like they have time, but I feel like even if they did have more time, I feel like some of the issue is just that like their tech itself is not good. So I'm not sure that like without them fixing their engine, I don't think there's like a lot that they can do. Like I think they need to like completely overhaul the entire thing. Like honestly, they need to get Molotov to come in and be like, "Hey guys, we're gonna take your engine. We're gonna have a whole dedicated team of people, and we're gonna fix this. We're gonna make it better."
I'm not sure I
This is
agree.
bad.
I mean, also, I'm not a developer, right? Neither are you. Although you know a little bit more about it than I do, so you know, you should get some credit. But playing the game, like I see a lot of cool things that they're trying to put in. You know, I like that, like for example, when you pause the game, you can still see the world behind you, right? You can actually rotate the map in real time. And then that positions you to where you can go next. Like they made improvements over previous games. Like they are continually making improvements in a lot of ways. Like a criticism that both Sword and Shield and Arceus had, so they didn't have a little radar map, which I realize may seem really basic because other games have it, but they added that, you know, and it does make a difference. And it's cool how they handle the map system because you can rotate, and then you're like, oh, so that's where I'm supposed to go. It's actually a little bit more clear, but that's a simple thing. Just like the mechanics of, you know, jumping into a battle with a Pokemon and then still seeing the overworld still being there. Like, that puts a stress on the system, right? Like, still running the entire world, but also being able to have a full-on proper battle right there. That's not easy to do.
I mean, think about it this way. Like, you're doing the same kind of thing every time you battle somebody in Xenoblade. There's effects going off. You're just doing arts. You have, in fact, multiple characters, up to 7 of them, pulling off arts that all have different effects going off. The monster itself is huge. There can be like 20 people on screen at any given point that are all pulling off effects. And guess what? Most of the time, that game runs perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, I get what you're saying. Xenoblade's like a really good example of what Pokemon could be. But,
yeah,
you know, something also should be said. I talked about it earlier. Like, Xenoblade, I love Xenoblade. I think you guys, if you follow me, you know I love Xenoblade. But the world doesn't feel like there's a difference. There's not a lot of movement within the world itself.
Yeah, but the things that Pokemon are doing, it's not exactly hard to render. They're using like effects that are very smart, but they're very simple at the same time.
I'm not trying to argue that Pokemon is more impressive than Xenoblade. That is not the argument I am making. But what I am saying is there are things that Pokemon does that aren't done in Xenoblade, that aren't necessarily easy to do, at least compared to what they were doing. And there's yes, I'm not trying to say Game Freak is like the most incredible developer ever, right? All I'm simply saying is that they are making strides and they are doing some cool things. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're doing things that we don't see in other games. So, you know, it's a monster catching game, right? Like the Xenoblade's not a monster catching game. You kill the monster, you move on, right? And Pokemon, you interact with the Pokemon. That Pokemon has animations and interactions, and it can get scared and it can run away. Like, they're putting more time and detail into each Pokemon and how it responds to the world. They're trying to actually design it like a real animal with real behaviors. Now, obviously, they're not all super detailed, and some are better than others, but they're building on this, and there's a lot more Pokemon to design for, right? Like, so there's that to kind of worry about, and then putting them into the world and how you interact with that world. Something I'll say, as I've played Scarlet and Violet, just as a game, like, you ignore like the monster catching mechanic. Like, just as a game, Scarlet and Violet feels more fun than, say, Sword and Shield, for example. Like, some of the minigames I've played already are more fun. like because it feels like they're actually just doing a better job of creating a fun game. Something kind of like Zelda, where like Zelda will have mini games in it, and those mini games are fun. They're getting better. I know this is kind of like something I said every time a game comes out. Hey, they're getting a little closer, but I know it's not close enough. Yes, that's still the case now.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, the game itself is really fun. Like the actual gameplay itself, it's fun. It's so fun. I don't care about the frame rate that much.
It's annoying to see other developers from the 3DS era make the jump to Switch and like be so much more successful with it.
Luigi's Mansion 3, which looks incredible.
Yeah.
No, I definitely hear you there, right? But also, historically speaking, Game Freak has always been a company that's been considered not the company that pushes, even on the handhelds. We've always like, oh, the Pokemon games aren't really that intensive, right? Like I would say, it wasn't until Sun and Moon we were like, whoa, that really does push the 3DS, right? Like
there are some obvious improvements that Pokemon should conclude that aren't performance related. Like, where's voice acting? I keep seeing this brought up by multiple people.
Oh, I brought that up too.
Why they're not voice acting?
No, they should have had voice acting 3 years ago.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you with that one. That it just feels kind of awkward. Like voice acting would make the game a lot better. And I had a kind of a bit of an argument with someone in one of the comments from my videos saying, "Oh, well, that's just be way too expensive. It's unrealistic. There's so many characters in the game." Listen,
what?
There are games that sell far less, like Xenoblade.
You've seen Xenoblade? That'll
sell like a tenth or a 20th the same amount of copies, and there is way more voice acting. I mean, obviously, because Pokemon has none.
Hours and hours.
Yeah, hours upon hours, right? I'm not asking for hours upon hours. I'm asking for voice acting from key characters at key moments in the game. So we're asking maybe for like a handful of hours worth of voice acting, if even that. Like I'm asking for voice acting for when we fight the gym leaders in the actual battle. I'm not talking about the gym leader still. Like, the gym leader doesn't have to have every dialogue it has be voice acted, but for those key moments where there's actually a cutscene, where there's something dynamic going on, where it's supposed to be a spectacle, have that be a cutscene with actual voice acting. It wouldn't have costed them that much. Like what? I mean, I don't know, $50,000, $100,000. Like,
I don't know.
Not that much.
Pennies to them.
Right, exactly. So, they could have done it. I hope finally they'll get around to the next game, but I thought this is the one where they would have done it because it looked like they could have already had done it 3 years ago. So that, I think, is a huge loss. I want to check the chat here. I have noticed some people in the chat, a few friends from work. Jessica, hi, how are you? It's good to see you. Hope you're still here, just to see me notice you. Sarah, hello. Nicole, hello. I do notice people in the chat. Moving on here, let's see. Paco Salvador added me. It blows my mind that Game Freak managed to put out 2 games in a year with a 169 staff, which for a AAA studio is tiny. For reference, 300 people worked on Breath of the Wild in double the time. Yeah. I actually think I'm actually impressed. Open world game. So I'm impressed.
I mean, that's the entire
what they get done.
I imagine the actual team is much smaller than that.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I mean, there's also Creatures Inc. Right? It's an entirely separate company that handles the actual creature models. So it's not. There is a bit more of a division of labor than some people realize. What do they do?
I feel like they haven't done much until this game. So the models have been like the exact same until just now.
Until this game, they've actually updated a lot of the models in this game. Pokemon have like
what are they
textures
doing before
now.
then?
Like Pokemon that are reptiles have scales. Pokemon that are made of metal look like they're made of metal. Like Pokemon that are furry creatures have fur. Like it's changed. Yeah.
They've actually done something for once.
But anyway, all I was going to say in reference to what you said, Paco, is just I'm not honestly just impressed with how much content Game Freak is able to put out and how frequently they do it. I think if it were to be more spaced out, that would be kind of the quality we were looking for, but it wouldn't be the frequency of game we're looking for, right? So some people buy a Pokemon game every year. So if we get the quality we're asking for, it may mean that those people who have come to expect a Pokemon game every year may not get it. And it's kind of one of those things where we kind of show what we really want by buying the games. You know? Because if they're still selling 20 million copies per Pokemon game, why would they stop? You know?
Yeah.
Now, if they were to wait a year and it ends up they're selling 40 million copies per Pokemon game, for sure. But let's be frank. Or you know what, to be frank, we could be Brandon and Andres. That's fine too. I gotta stop with that joke. Anyway,
yes.
I think most of us will agree that if they were to have waited a year, Scarlet and Violet would not have made double the sales. The people
I think it would have sold a lot better, though.
You think
I
so?
do think a lot of
what
people...
if Scarlet Violet goes down as the best-selling
I'm not gonna
Pokemon
buy
game
the
ever?
game. And I think there are a lot of people like me who are just like, look at the game and go like, I would have bought this. This is the revolution for Pokemon that I've been wanting to get interested in the game.
Yeah.
But I can't because it does not run at an acceptable performance level for me personally. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of people like that who are like, this would be my time to jump into Pokemon, but no. Why would I jump into the one that seems to be like the worst performing, least polished Pokemon game yet? Why would I do that? I feel like if they released it, in a polished state, it would get better sales because there was the negative like the entire like social media push about this game is negative pretty much. There's like people who are positive are seen as fanboys, even though I think that is kind of harsh. I think there are a lot of fanboys as well who kind of just like pretend that there's no issue. But you can enjoy the game anyways. But you do have to like say like there are issues that I think will keep people from playing this game. And all of the people talking about the issues is surely driving people away from it, right?
Yeah, and that is an interesting point. As I've been actually trying to argue that hey, it's not that bad, right? Because I do think that the negative opinions we're seeing on social media is scaring some people away. But I also think so many people are playing the game talking about how fun it is that it's also counteracting that, right? And the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of conversation about Pokemon right now. And you got to ask yourself, is negative publicity still good publicity, right?
Maybe.
And that's tough to say. Think about this. Pokemon Sword and Shield, that with the whole national Dex controversy, still ended up going down as the second best-selling Pokemon game ever. Now, one question we could ask ourselves is, well, does that mean that it did better because of the controversy? Or could it have been the first best-selling Pokemon game ever had it not been for the controversy?
Right.
And we won't know that because, well, I mean, history only happens once. Like, it's a new event now. But also, second isn't bad. Like, that's not bad at all. So we'll see. I mean, what would you say is worse? What's going on with what went on with Sword and Shield? What's going on with Scarlet and Violet now? Sword and Shield, people were mad because they cut out a lot of Pokemon. Scarlet and Violet, people are mad because the game doesn't.
I think
run
the
really
Scarlet and Violet issues are more reasonable than the issues that people had with Sword and Shield. Even though I do think Sword and Shield were ridiculously unambitious games. I feel like Pokemon should have started out with like Scarlet and Violet. That should have been Gen 1, like the first experience.
Oh, it would have been a massive,
on that should have been that
jump.
kind of attempt.
And people might have been more forgiving at that point too. It was like, oh, what's the first one? So whatever. But now it's not the first one.
Not like the game that might be the last Pokemon game on Switch.
I really do think that the reason why the game is running the way it is purely for time reasons. They need to get the game out as fast as possible, and this is why we got it in the form it is. I'm kind of expecting it's going to get patched. Now, we can at least agree on this. It's not as bad as Cyberpunk. Oh, stop it.
Consoles?
Stop it. This is not a conversation. Okay, I'm not allowing this to be a conversation. I regret asking. Okay, fine. We're good. All right, moving on.
I'm going to agree. I don't think it's as bad as Cyberpunk, though I do think it can be as bad as Cyberpunk in certain situations.
Moving on. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't care. I do care. I'm just kidding. All right. I just feel like we should move on. That's all. All right. So Ice Sonic Atomy, Pokemon Company should have delayed the game. No matter if Nintendo's no big holiday game, it would do better. I'll say this. I think Nintendo has a lot of games that are just kind of saved, primed, and ready to go. So if it came to a situation where Pokemon would not have been ready for the holiday, they could have had another game ready. There's pretty much no other game they could have released that would have had the kind of sales potential.
Yeah.
So there's that, but they would have had something else for us to play. Absolutely. Thank you, AB James. It's gonna be fine though. No worries. It happened to you this time last year as well. Well, hopefully things are going well for you. Mr. Aztec Gamer, Pokemon Company can do whatever they want, and sadly, people will buy. At least the criticism is unopposed this time. Except here I am opposing it. I'm not opposing it. I'm not opposing it. I agree that there are issues. I just don't think the issues are as bad as some people are portraying it, but they are still bad and they should be rectified. Paco Salvador added me again here. Pokemon Red and Blue was not only filled with glitches, but it was also broken in game design-wise. The Psychotech was objectively better than every other Pokemon. See? Ha! I have someone who agrees with me, Brandon. How about that? Because it's the truth.
I mean, it's like the game's not balanced. You can say the same thing for like Smash Brothers Melee.
Well, I think we just lost connection for a moment. I'm assuming we're coming back. I think we just lost connection for a moment, guys. Let me know. But I think we're good. Yeah, seems like we're fine. So, moving on here. Alex, I mean, yeah, but Scarlet and Violet don't have the same limitations like Red and Blue. Bigger RPGs exist on Nintendo Switch. I love how, like, whenever I come back to the channel, like, I realized we talked about this 20 minutes ago. And that's just kind of like, I'm just kind of playing catch up. Ronnie Fazio, the more Game Freak wants to improve the series and appeal to that market wants, which currently is open world games, the lack of time they're given to develop is even more obvious. Yeah, I mean, the games are getting more ambitious. You know, I've been saying this for a while though. I do think they need to have more time between generations. I think there should be 4-year gaps, and I think they should outsource remakes, and I think they should rely on DLC, and you know, maybe have a separate team working on the Legend series. Like that way they can have something every year the way we want, but it's also spaced out enough where the mainline games get the quality they deserve. Moving on here. Let's see. Johnny Hernandez, we need new hardware. Nintendo cannot make any excuses. I do not think the Scarlet and Violet issues are hardware related.
No.
It's an interesting timing situation because we're also coming off of the release of Bayonetta 3, which also had performance issues, and it feels like they were targeting a higher spec range. Those were more
hardware related.
Yeah. Actually, did I send you the video? Who was it? I saw a video kind of talking about why Bayonetta 3 was having the hardware issues it was, and basically we're overclocking the Switch, and what they noticed is what the overclocking the CPU and GPU didn't really seem to fix the frame rate issues too much. It ended up being more of a memory bandwidth issue.
Right.
So like just kind of being able to stream everything, the larger scale stuff, I guess, is what led to most of the frame rate issues. So,
I mean, you can tell like some of the textures in certain areas can get kind of basic, so it seems like they have issues streaming them in. I mean, that's not entirely surprising if you know about like the makeup of this. I've been saying this for the past few weeks. We're talking about open world games, but like the memory bandwidth on the Switch is like really bad. Like, it's one of the biggest limitations compared to the Xbox One and the PS4. Especially the PS4. Like, the PS4's memory bandwidth is something like 8 times more. Something ridiculous. Whereas most of the specs are more of like a 2, maybe 3 times performance improvement over Switch. So, like, it's a huge gap compared to all the other respective specs. So.
Yeah. I see another friend in the chat. Steven, what is up, man? How are you? How you doing, guys? I'm just noticing some friends. I have to get them shoutouts if I see them. The Megaton Menace. When do you think Advance Wars games will come out? I think it got canceled. Okay, I'm kidding. It's not canceled. I hope it's not. The game's been done. We know that. They had 2 different release dates and delayed them. So, man, it's tough. I don't know, because they've taken so long. It's really... I would love to assume it's going to come out sometime next year.
Maybe they'll shadow drop it in a direct next year.
I don't think they're going to shadow drop it. I think it needs some marketing. I think that would be... I think it'd be very unfair to the developers of the game.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I think the game needs to have an opportunity to actually succeed. I think, if anything, the reason why...
I do think we'll see it in early direct, though.
Maybe. I'm going to tell myself that the reason we haven't seen it yet is because since they had to delay it because of the war, they're now waiting, because, I mean, there's still issues going on, but how are they going to wait years until there's no war? Like, that's... I don't...
Right.
You know? I think at some point they just have to wait, and I think, basically, they delayed it at the time because of simply the timing of events, and it would have been considered... you know, just a little rude maybe. I don't think it would have, but, you know, they decided to go in that direction because, you know, they wanted to be tasteful. But
yeah,
I think the reason we haven't seen it yet is just because if they were to have released it during the holidays, that probably wouldn't have been the best time for it. And they're waiting to find a good slot within their lineup where they can say, hey, we're going to put it here. We think this is a good time where it will succeed. I say that, but also I say that realizing they could have had the game released this December, because they initially were going to release it last December, and they didn't do it. So, you know. But, I mean, also maybe that was never the best idea to have it come out last December either. It's tough to say, you know, why a company will make a decision, especially Nintendo when it comes for what game should come out when.
Yeah.
Like, they're releasing Tears of the Kingdom early May, which makes no sense.
They're just bonkers, yeah. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it made sense. Like, historically speaking, the big 3D Zeldas would come out November for the holidays. And with Breath of the Wild, the game was delayed into early 2017 and it launched alongside the Switch. And it came out in March. March has made sense for a lot of big Nintendo releases because it's the last month of the fiscal year. So they want to get out that last big push of sales so they have a really good, healthy report for their financials. That's why we see that then. But May is 6 weeks afterwards.
Such a weird... It's right before E3 too, like the biggest gaming showcase of the year.
So why are they doing it then? I don't know. They may... I'm sure they have analytics that they look at, right? They may look at analytics and try and predict what's coming out when, and they try and like put games in at a place where they think they'll have the biggest sort of impact, I guess. And we're not privy to that information, right? This is like a whole bunch of whatever. I mean, these are people's jobs where their job is just to analyze when to come out with something, maybe, right? So there's that to take into consideration. We don't know if maybe Nintendo has hardware planned, right? There's so many different things, and a whole other factor, as we mentioned, was just image, right? And just respecting people's feelings, which is why Advance Wars was delayed. So it's really tough for me to kind of tell you when I think the game's coming out. I don't believe they're going to wait until the war is over, because that could go on for years. And then there could be another war, right? I think, you know, I mean, if that was the case, then why do we see games like Call of Duty, right? Like, those games are way worse than Advance Wars. Advance Wars is an animated game that's based off war, sure, but it's a strategy. It's an animated strategy game that's based off war, but not in a fictitious way. So it's just kind of like the levels here of like how cautious Nintendo is about offending people about war versus like games like Call of Duty that literally the entire game is based off an event that actually happened. You know?
Yeah.
And it's realistic. So there's levels to
it's usually tasteless too.
And let's not go down that road. Having Hope 5. How's Ruby? Ruby is great. Ruby is currently playing with her cousin, and I felt they were making too much noise when we started the show, so I released them from the room. I'm sure at some point she's gonna claw at my door unless she got stuck in another room, and I will let her in towards the end of the show. Maybe. We shall see. But she's good. Alex, most of my friends didn't buy the game because of the glitchy mess. The few that did ended up disappointed. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but at the same time, everyone's gonna have a different opinion.
You know, something I haven't heard about the game is how it performs when you're playing online. Like, is the online experience okay?
Well, we
Is
could
they
test
connected?
it
Can you
if
actually do
were
things
to buy
online?
the game.
Well, I need to know beforehand. Are we going to be able to play, or is it just going to be a janky mess? Is there things you can you actually do everything with your friends, or can you only explore the world? Like, what are the limitations?
So what's neat is that I can be doing a battle, and you can just start running around my face.
Really?
Yeah, and you can do emotes too. So like, you could sit there and make a weird emote while I'm battling.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes away from the epicness of the battle, but that's because you're playing. You opted to play with your friend.
It would be interesting if they had like an invisible shield around the battle, but you could still like run around it and make faces in the background.
Yeah, that would be fun.
So you can't just like clip through the battle.
I wouldn't have minded that either if they did something like that, like just an invisible respect barrier,
Yeah. They could even do like a shield. They could even like a see-through.
You know what they could have done?
Like, maybe they could render
you know
that
how
off.
Rotom, the electric ghost Pokemon that just takes like every
the phone.
Yeah, well, it's the phone now, but it can be other things. Like, what if there was a Rotom that acted as a referee for every Pokemon battle, and really all it does is if you are playing with friends, it just circles around really quickly to block you from going into the territory of the battle. That way they add more of like a canon reason why you can't go in there. And you'll see like a little bit of an energy shield kind of blocking you, but then when it goes away, it sort of disappears. So there is an invisible wall, but they have a Rotom animated to kind of zoom in as a referee to have a canon reason why you can't just walk into the battle. That would have been cool, and I actually would have preferred that because I don't think I like it with people just jumping right into the battle. And it's not like they get hit; they're just kind of clipping through, So it's not the same. But still being able to like stand right next to it and react to it, and that way there can be a little bit of an audience. That's cool. So think about this. Right now, you can do cooperative play with 4 players. Let's say in the future they have more of a server thing where it's multiple people. Let's say it's like 16 or 32 or whatever, right? And some people are having a battle, and literally other real people playing the game can stand by and watch. And as you're playing, there's a literal audience. So in real life, real life there aren't Pokemon, but if there was in real life, right, or like in the cartoon, or even like in gym leader battles, you'll see an audience because the whole idea is it's like a sport. People are stopping by to watch the sport. Same way, for example, let's say you're in a park and there's like a pretty competitive basketball game. Some people might stop and watch. Same thing for a Pokemon battle, except in the future we could see it where we could see actual real people who are playing the same like overworld will stop and watch a battle, but because of the little Rotom idea we have, it won't get in the way.
Sword and Shield, right?
The what?
They had like servers in Sword and Shield for the Wild area, but there's like very basic interaction.
Like
right?
which is random. Like you'd see people run through. You might be able to click A and you might say hi or something. But
it'd be cool if you could actually see the other people running on the world and you could just like challenge them to a Pokemon battle.
That would be cool. I'm assuming we can do that in this game, but I haven't played with anyone yet, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Megaton Menace asked me, how's Bayonetta 3? So I'm still working through Bayonetta 1. As I have explained, I've had a lot going on with work. Now I don't have work, so I'll probably have more time to get around to games. But I honestly I don't plan on taking it easy. I may take it easy for a couple days just to kind of like de-stress a little bit and plan things out. But my plan for the channel is come out with a lot of content. So we'll see what happens. And I don't know how long that'll last because this doesn't make that much money, right? So I can't rely on this, not to find another job. But I don't know. We'll see how things go. We'll see what the future holds. Point is, I've been still working on Bayonetta 1. Steven says, for those wishing was delayed, don't play it. They'll eventually patch it. I'm having a blast with Violet. Steven, we need to play together. Yes.
I am curious if they will patch it because they have to move on to like the next thing. Maybe because they're working on DLC, potentially they'll have time to patch it as they work on the DLC. But at the same time, they have to make.
I mean,
they
had a day one patch, so there may be more patches.
I'm just wondering how long. There's so many issues.
Sword and Shield had patches
they
throughout.
Have to dedicate to this.
They patched for different things. They were maintaining other elements of the game, but I feel like they're gonna patch the game. I really don't think it's. I don't know if it's ever gonna become perfect.
Yeah, I don't think the game is ever going to run perfectly. Like I doubt they're going to fix their performance issues with the game, and I doubt they're going to fix the frame rate issues with like the characters. Just moving at like no FPS.
I do think it's gonna get better. I don't think it's gonna get. I don't think it's gonna become perfect, but I do think it's gonna get better. I think there will be less glitches. I honestly
don't think they're gonna change it.
I disagree.
I think they'll focus on fixing actual glitches, and they won't actually make the game perform that much better at all, if at all.
Well, I mean, getting rid of glitches is a big difference. Their frame rate's not amazing, but I see what you're saying. They will fix glitches.
I think they will.
Yeah, and I do feel this is just my opinion, and I can't think of any specific instances in mind. But I do personally believe that there will be some stability fixes. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but I do think it will be better than what it is now. And I don't have any.
Nice.
This is purely based off just my feelings, which doesn't mean much. So,
I just feel like they don't have time to do the improvements that they need to make the game perform at an adequate level, or just stable 30 FPS, I guess, relatively.
All right, I'm glad you brought up
so
DLC.
I feel like they need to do. I have a feeling, and I can't say for sure because I'm not there at the Game Freak. Oops, sorry. I'm not there at the Game Freak's HQ working on the game, but I strongly feel that this is an issue with the tech itself, and not necessarily the developers. And I feel like they need to take the time to fix their tech, because anytime the game has to load anything, it dies.
We'll see. I was gonna say I'm glad you brought up DLC. Because, I'm not quite sure what they're going to do with DLC yet. There's a few different ways they could handle it. They could just add another area to explore. Or they could add elements to the world and have, like, another treasure hunt. Because you start off the game, you eventually get to the school, you explore the world a little bit. But the thing is, apparently there's been several different treasure hunts. So they could have a new treasure hunt, and they could simply change elements in the game that make the treasure hunt different. And that could be the DLC. And if that's the case, if that's what happens, or it takes place in the same world just with new elements in different circumstances, then, well, the DLC is literally in the same world, right? And that if it's that, then they for sure are going to optimize the frame rate.
They should,
right? Now, if it ends up being in a separate environment, I expect that separate environment to run better because it will have more time with the hardware. Or with the engine, with the elements involved. Same way how, they had a better looking, better running version of the DLC areas compared to the wild area. So there is that historical context there, where the DLC did show improvements over the base game. I do think the DLC will show improvements over the base game, but depending on what that DLC is, that could also impact the base game. So we'll see.
Right.
But
I guess it depends on what they're going for.
Yeah. See here, DE Fox. Adam, Nintendo Prime mentioned today in a video that people emulating Scarlet Violet on PC are having issues too. I don't think it's not necessarily a power issue. I think it's just an optimization issue and ironing out little weird glitches issue. Like there's underlying
as I
factors.
said before, I don't think their engine itself is optimized to move the amount of data that they are trying to move. So even with more powerful hardware, if your engine itself cannot handle it, you're not going to be able to make it better.
Man, I can't wait for 2025 when we play the next Pokemon game and there's less frame rate issues and it's in 4K. Although because it's in 4K, that's why it'll have frame rate issues. Moving on.
Oof.
It shouldn't though. If we're getting DLSS,
Nah,
I
no
doubt
DLSS,
it, but we'll see.
4K should be easy.
Yeah. Emilio Martinez, you think Nintendo should make a better and more powerful console or stay with Nintendo Switch for a few more years? I think that Nintendo needs to transition to more powerful hardware that is both forwards and backwards compatible with the Switch. I think they need to transition, but it needs to be a soft transition where the Switch itself won't be entirely invalidated. Let's say I'm right about my prediction and new hardware comes out next year. I think that even though it'll come out next year, there will still be new games coming out for base Switch owners for at least a couple more years. So I think we're going to be seeing games coming out for base Switch until 2025. Now, by 2025, they may not be as big and significant, but there will still be games coming out by that point. That's when we'll see things sort of end. I'm sure there'll be some third parties still releasing games for Switch, but I'm talking about support directly from Nintendo. Right. And I think by that point, the newer Switch, the Switch 2, will have more powerful hardware. We'll be seeing games made specifically for that. And this 2-year window of 2023 to 2025, games will be coming out for both Switch and Switch 2, and they'll simply look and run better on new Switch. With the occasional exclusives, and the closer we get to 2025 and beyond, the more and more exclusives.
And with DLSS, Nintendo would have a very easy way of making games look so much better on the new system, enticing customers to buy that version.
Yeah.
Because they can just say, hey, if you want to port a game to the Switch, now you have to make the engine compatible with DLSS so we can make it look better on the Pro. Like, just have that as like a mandatory thing. And then it's just such an easy way to make the games look so much better. I feel like with the power gap of the Switch to what we've seen from the leaks and what, where mobile technology is at the moment, where the Switch should land, it should be a huge jump. It should be very enticing. The game should run a lot better, and there should be a lot more third-party exclusives, I'd imagine. I think we're going to see a nice transition. It's going to be soft, but I do think that people are going to buy the new Switch, and we're not going to have any issue with numbers after a few years. We're going to have a good install base.
Yeah. I got a super chat here from Taker610. Thank you again for another super chat, Taker. If new hardware is coming with Zelda, I'd say February Direct is where we see it, but I don't think they do a separate one for such an announcement. That's interesting. I think
they would definitely do a separate event for a hardware announcement. I don't think they would just announce it at a Direct.
They could, but if it's a new generation, I think
I don't think they announced any of the other hardware in Directs. Like, they had their own trailers drops.
They've had 3DS revisions mentioned in a Direct before, but during the Switch era, they have been separate trailer announcements. Yeah. But we're talking about not just like another revision. We're talking about a Switch 2.
Right. I imagine that have its whole presentation dedicated to it.
Yeah.
I doubt they would just announce it in a Direct.
Now, how the timing of that works, I don't know. And it may not even happen in 2023, right? Like, this is all assuming it comes in 2023. That's my prediction.
Very possible.
But I could be wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. So, how the timing of that works. Well, assuming Zelda's a launch title, right? I mean, I don't think they wait a long time. That would mean the system's coming out in May, right? Mm-hmm. How much time do they need between announcement and release? I think an announcement February at the latest is when they would have to announce the hardware if it's coming out in May. So
I'll go for January. Even that would be close.
Yeah, I like the idea of them having a presentation in January for a new hardware. I think that makes sense. It's right after the holidays. Like, maybe, I guess the tricky part is they may want to wait some amount of time, because to announce a next generation system right after Christmas, they're gonna be like, well, what the hell? Why didn't they just wait 6 weeks?
I mean, people are What are they gonna do? What are they gonna do that's gonna affect Nintendo's sales? They
I
already
don't
blocked
know.
it.
How do people
Nintendo
feel when
doesn't
they buy
matter.
an iPhone 14 and then 6 weeks later they announce the iPhone 15?
I don't know, man.
I
But
don't
you
know.
always know it's gonna come eventually.
Yeah.
I think that it actually could be beneficial because
You
people
could always
when
trade in
people
your
get gift cards
Switch.
and stuff.
So,
You get pre-orders.
Yeah, and but
You can use their gift cards for pre-orders and stuff.
yeah.
But I guess you don't have to pay for a pre-order necessarily, depending on where you get it from.
Yeah, it does depend. But also, if you do get a Switch like right before Switch 2 is announced, you can trade that in, and save a lot of money that way.
A good amount. I got $200 just for my Wii U. That thing was dead. The gamepad didn't even work.
What the hell? Really? Should I trade? Nah, I should not trade in my Wii U for a Switch OLED.
I don't think that they would get near the value now. Back then, Wii U sold for a ton of money.
Yeah, but now they're collector's items. I could get it for $1,000.
I think people are less interested now.
I don't know.
So funnily enough.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Johnny Hernandez. Nintendo was refunding players for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Disbelieve. Let's check Nintendo. I doubt it. Did you see that? Did anyone else see that? I
Say that again?
Believe it. Johnny Hernandez is saying that Nintendo's refunding Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
What?
I don't believe that.
No way. They wouldn't.
No way. There would be news on that.
This is no Cyberpunk situation.
It really is not that bad. Like, it's bad. But it's not
like halfway to there.
It's like not refunding.
It's
It's not refunding bad. The game's not broken. It's just
game works.
not optimized.
Yeah.
I don't even think they were
not
refunding.
Like the game has the glitches that the game has, as far as I know, don't actually like completely break the game. You might have to respawn and maybe do something over.
Now there are some people who try to break the game on their own accord.
As far as I know.
People do that, but that's not really, You can break all sorts of games if you put enough effort into it.
I have seen that. Have you seen the glitch where you can go double fast, turbo speed?
I did. I don't even feel like that's a glitch. I just feel like that's cool. Like,
that one is kind of fun. But have you seen the glitch where you can just break the whole game by just jumping up the walls backwards?
I saw someone jumping up the crater with a backward jump. I didn't see the game break. I just thought they jumped in there.
Well, I just mean like you go places you're not really supposed to go, or you just like.
But people did.
The game's not broken, like it functions, but that clearly you're not supposed to be able to do that.
But there are people do that in all sorts of games like that. Like even in Twilight Princess, a Zelda game that took longer to come out than we wanted to and was super polished. People found ways to like go beyond the boundaries in that game too.
Oh yeah, I mean you can do that on most games, but these are like super obvious.
Well,
they're not like trying hard to do. Like these are easy glitches anybody can pull off.
The backwards jump one is kind of hard. Or on accident. I think they're hard. Have you done it yourself? Or are you just seeing Twitter videos? You're just seeing Twitter videos, aren't you?
But it's clearly not hard to do.
Brandon, until you do it yourself, I think you should refrain from talking.
It's pretty. What are you gonna?
You can talk.
How can you convince me that these glitches? I mean, it's clear to see. Anybody can look at them.
I tried to do the backwards jump, and I couldn't immediately find success with it. So it's not that easy. It requires skill and practice. Like all sorts of games that have little weird glitches that you can take advantage of. So.
I'm not saying that. That one's fine. That one I don't even mind. That one's just fun.
The ones you've mentioned are cool. I'm glad they exist. I'm glad you can use a backwards jump to climb up mountains. I'm glad you can use a second control stick to move faster. Those don't ruin the game. They'll just make the game more fun. So,
Right. Those are just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like this game and Bethesda games, those two studios, they know how to make glitchy games, my friend. People complain about, like, I don't think it's specific to Pokemon. Like, people complain about glitches, these same kind of glitches in other games.
I googled Nintendo refunding players for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I don't see any like big articles reporting this. It's like random ones. Okay, I don't know. It seems like someone was able to get their eShop get an eShop refund for their Scarlet pre-order.
So one person got a refund. They're not mass refunding the game.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a mass thing. At least from what I don't know. I'm just reading a random article. I've never heard of the site before. Yeah.
Sounds legit.
There's nothing. There's nothing. I mean, I see Game Rant actually. Some people. It doesn't seem like a mass thing. I don't know. I don't know. If you argue that you can get refunds for all sorts of things, so. Johnny Hernandez, will Nintendo do a Nintendo Direct next month? Because last year we got an indie showcase on December.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too.
It's 95% chance that that's not gonna happen.
I think we can get information in January.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not January or February is when we're getting news, not December. I really doubt that. Though there's not any big games coming out in December, so they could do that, but I don't think so. Yeah, I doubt it. Paco Salvador, yes, there is a backward jump in Mario 64. Yeah. Yeah.
At the stairs.
Whoa. Ryan McCanty, you're here too. What's up, buddy? Hello. How it do? Okay. All right. So let's talk about. Let's move on from Pokemon for a little while, and let's talk about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Wave 3. Yeah. So we got a trailer for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Wave 3 coming out December 7th. Thank you for pointing that out, Super Chris. And I am pretty excited for it because my favorite track is getting added. And you know what that is, Brandon?
Was it called Maple Raceway? Is that what it's called?
Wow, you know, I trusted you. I trusted you as my friend to truly understand the depths of my soul and the most important track in Andres history. No, I'm just kidding. But it is Maple Treeway. Yeah, that is it. Yeah,
Treeway. That's what it's called. That's also the one I was looking forward to.
Yeah, Maple Treeway is sick. It looks good. I actually think a lot of parts of the trailer look good. Like some of the tracks, I was surprised because some of the issues we've seen with the Mario Kart DLC is a lot of the tracks seem to have a more of a simplistic design. The art's more simple. The textures are less
extremely basic textures.
Yeah, a lot more basic. But what we saw from some of the tracks, it looked like we were seeing a little bit of extra detail than I have sort of come to expect from the DLC so far.
Maple Tree?
Yeah.
Tree, what did you say it was?
Maple Tree Way.
Maple Tree House.
Treeway. Maple
Treeway, yes.
Blah, 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 blah.
Maple Star.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That one looked good. Like they had like this nice wood texture on the trees.
Yeah. I want to see if I can.
And the lighting was gorgeous. There was a couple of ones. There was one track from the 3DS that looked basic and looked like it stood out from all the other ones. That looked like it was the same quality as like some of the older tracks from like Wave 1. But other than that one, they all looked great.
I don't want to screen share because I still haven't fixed that OBS issue that I had experienced the last couple weeks. But I wanted to pull up images. I have to imagine that there are images of the tracks online on Nintendo's website. I could be mistaken, but I feel...
Could you screen share on Discord itself?
The thing is, I know what'll happen. I could screen share, but it's gonna ruin the audio. It'll cut you off for whatever reason. But hold on.
But that's if you do it in OBS, right? What if you screen shared in Discord itself?
I have like an overlay. I would have to kind of... It's not impossible. It's just messy. It's not streamlined. Let me first find a screenshot before I... They may not have released the screenshots yet, but I'm hoping they have.
I imagine they wouldn't.
Yeah, we'll never know for sure until it happens. Okay, well they have something here. There are screenshots. Okay, we got some screenshots. Okay.
Yo, we got screenshots.
Guys, let me know if I am ruining the audio. I don't know how. I'm gonna have my phone ready. So someone message me on Discord when I screw this up. By the way, I will try to be more active on Discord now, so I'll try. I'm not good at it. Okay. I'm going to attempt to screen share. I feel like this is just not going to work, but I'm going to try anyway.
Yes.
Oh, I think I know why it won't work, because the audio capture, I think might make more sense. And now I'm like thinking, oh, well, what if you just, do it now? I'm thinking about editing on the fly. Let's see. I should just try something and see what happens. Here we go. Yeah, when I do that, your audio's gone. Yeah, so that won't let me do it like that right now. However,
I'm very curious what you're doing. You'll have to show me after the podcast.
So what happened?
Happening.
The thing is, I haven't changed how I do it because I used to screen share just fine. Something got mucked with the audio settings, and I haven't gotten around to fixing it yet. And I will fix it. I've just been so busy with work that I no longer have that I haven't gotten around to doing it. Anyway, I can still sort of jury rig this in. Let me... Well, here's one simple way. I could literally just drag tab over. When I do this, how terrible does it look on the... Okay, so it's actually not as bad as I thought. It looks a little weird.
I'm gonna go look on this.
Yeah, but you can see one screenshot at a time like this, so it's not that bad. I think it would be better if I eliminated this stuff, but I'll leave it like this for now. So, although what is scene 2? There we go. Okay, no, that works. Brandon, talk. No, they can't hear you.
How dare they?
Yeah.
How dare they?
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll leave it like this for now, but just so I can kind of at least show you, so just reference points. Tour London Cup, I don't play Mario Kart Tour, so whatever.
Looks good, though.
Yeah, no,
I
think it looks cool. Still see, like, kind of more basic textures, but I don't think it looks bad. I'm kind of accustomed to the art style. This one, it looks surprisingly good to me, like, the water... it just seemed to be more like a... Look, to me, it felt more like a proper Mario Kart track from 8. Maple Treeway looks insane. I probably should, like, pull up a trailer and just analyze each screenshot.
Yeah, these screenshots are not amazing.
No, they're just whatever.
The one above Maple Treeway is probably the least impressive one.
Yeah.
Like, that one looks like Wave 1.
Yeah, what I should do is actually, like, go frame by frame on the actual trailer and show you guys that way.
Yeah. Man, the clouds and sky rendering that they have in some of these tracks are really nice looking. At least in that screenshot.
Okay. I'm gonna... Man, I really wish I had fixed this in time. It's hard to share everything without sharing everything. One moment. Obviously, this is not how it's supposed to look. I'm working on it. What I could do is, let's see, I think the window capture, is this it?
You'd just be able to hide the other elements, or put that above.
Or just put it
the,
above and put it at the bottom when I'm done.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, and that'll work for now. Talk.
Yo.
Okay, cool. So the audio's still there.
What's up?
All right, yeah. Please forgive the terrible setup. It will be fixed. Anyway. So it's kind of feels blurry to me. Whatever. It is what it is.
It's hard to tell on my phone.
Yeah. Oh, that's because it was the frame. This looks good. I mean, you may not be able to tell on your phone, but this to me looks like this looks like a
Mario Kart 8.
Yeah. Now, actually, when I look at this
It
building
looks a
here,
lot like
this looks simplistic, but the track, the trees,
right.
I
I mean,
know.
it looks pretty similar, I'd say, to like the Animal Crossing stage. Like a lot of the textures and the leaf piles and the trees.
Yeah.
I'd say there's some textures on the side, like the grass is not as detailed. Like the main pathway is
probably
good,
sound
and you
like
can
really
see like the leaves actually like
graphics
react
wars
to.
right today. Like between last week and this week, we probably like sound like major graphics wars. We're just kind of like, I love the graphics, the textures.
I mean, to be fair, I am kind of a major graphics
Yeah,
whore.
you are.
But,
You.
Those shadows
Visual
look really
slut.
nice, so they're like really diffused from the tree.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a few seconds behind of what I'm commenting on, but obviously,
I can go back.
that's fine. I do think Rainbow Road. Oh, Jesus Christ, my speech impediment there. Rainbow Road looks pretty good.
This one looks amazing. I loved it on 3DS, but seeing, oh my god, like this looks crazy good. Love it. I love what they did with it, like the track texture, right? And then just seeing like how it orbits around each planet. This looks awesome. And it's the star. Oh, come on.
Looks nice.
Like it looked good on 3DS, but 3DS was 3DS. This is, the Switch. It's a big difference.
I think the part where they're surrounding the rings of Jupiter, whatever that part is.
This is the part that really floored me. Like this is not something I expect from the DLC, but it feels something close, like something closer to what we would have expected from the base Mario Kart 8 game.
Yeah.
Which again, we're talking about a game that initially released in 2014, right? So but what we've seen on the DLC has been a lot more simplistic. Check out that thwomp. I realized we're just basically freaking out. I was like, oh man, look, the textures aren't plain. That's basically what this entire discussion is. Hey, look, the textures aren't completely flat. Isn't that cool? That's literally our entire conversation right now.
Yeah. But when you're considering 48 tracks over 2 years, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But,
And I feel my sense is that the quality is improving.
Yeah, it's getting better.
And
I'm
curious if they'll update any of the current tracks, because they didn't update the first Grand Prix when they added the second. They improved the first wave because there's 2 Grand Prix per wave. With the second wave, so I wonder if they'll improve the first and second waves more so with the third wave.
They're using a mix of like bake lighting and real-time lighting, which looks nice. You can really tell because like the shadows underneath, say like the Shy Guys and Toad, are way sharper than the shadows like say cast by like the small little posts, which are probably baked shadows, which makes the lighting overall look a lot better for the non-dynamic objects.
I just think the tracks look
Rock
good.
Mountain does not look that impressive, I will say. It's kind of basic.
Rock Mountain?
Yeah.
This one looks awesome. This is a new track. And I think it's made for Tour in mind as well, but like it looks really good. There's a lot of colors and lights.
Merry Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, Merry Mountain looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the like what would you call it? The sleigh. It's like going over.
Yeah, I'm just looking through things one more time here. Like, I wish I could kind of like speak more on it just from that they look cool, but they look cool. Like I'm happy that they're coming. I mean, I guess like they don't have any major games coming out in December, so the fact that we have this is something, right? Like that's something. And I mean, I love Mario Kart, so I'm glad, and I don't have the sense that this is low quality. And I think that was kind of a conversation point with waves 1 and 2 to improving upon
which
it.
were fair.
But now you look at this and like this looks, pretty good. Like I feel like most people are gonna be like, yeah, I'm satisfied. That's how I feel on this. Like I think what I'm looking at looks really cool. And that was pretty much the main criticism people had with waves 1 and 2. Like,
right.
There's still some of that. There's still some of that simplicity, but at the end of the day, this is Mario Kart. Like, it's Mario Kart. It's not, I don't know, Flight Simulator.
Right.
So, I'm.
Then
I'm
you're getting
content.
48 tracks for like $25.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there's
You're
actually there's a
doubling the
few
tracks
bangers
of the
here.
entire-
Like the 3DS Rainbow Road is sick. Peach Gardens I used to love. I already mentioned Maple Treeway. Merry Mountain looks cool.
Yeah, these all look great.
Yeah. I don't really have a problem with any of these. This be my favorite one. Obviously, I'll have to play them before I really decide that.
I mean, Merry Mountain is just perfect for Christmas, right?
Yes, that's a really good point, Brandon. It is for Christmas. I didn't even think about that. Oh, now I'm even more excited. You gotta play Merry Mountain for Christmas.
Dude, for real.
Ooh.
I mean, you got presents, you got a sleigh, you got all this stuff.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool.
Christmassy.
Yeah, that's exciting, actually. I didn't really think about that. Wow. Okay, well, I managed to share this in a slightly awkward way, but I figured it out. And we'll fix it for next week when it's not as annoying and stupid. But thank you for bearing with me. This is not a TED Talk, but it's a random live stream. So, there we go. And I think the audio's still working, so we're good. Very good. Cool. Yeah, I don't see people saying that everything's screwed. So, yeah, no random DMs telling me that everything went to shit. So I'm very happy about that.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So how long have we been going on for? We're approaching 2 hours. So we're in the last few moments of the show, guys. I'm not gonna take too long this time. Not really a big news week. I'll take this moment. I'll just kind of babble for a little bit while if you guys want to put some final like points or questions you want to talk about before we call it a night, please do so now. If you at me, I'm more likely to get to it. If you super chat me, obviously also more likely to get to it, but whatever you want. So this is plan. Okay. Some of you may not have heard my spiel at the beginning. So laid off from work. I'm still looking for work, right? And also, if anyone's looking for any help for video editing or content creation or something like that, swing it by me, right? But in the meanwhile, I'm going to try and be more consistent on the channel. I'm going to attempt to do this full time. I don't expect this to take off, right? Like I don't have visions of grandeur. Obviously, one hopes for success, right? But it is what it is. But I'm gonna try, and we'll see what happens. So there's gonna be more content coming out there. So I guess really, I'm just like want to talk about it with you guys, but also, give me your opinions, right? Like, is there certain like video topics that we haven't gotten around to you would like me to get to? You can tell me here in the chat. You can tell me on Discord. You can tell me on Twitter, right? Or any comments for my videos. Like, let me know of video topics, and I'm gonna have more time to get to different video topics. So I am more likely will get to the one you suggest. So put that out there. I'm thinking about coming out. There's gonna be more videos. I'm not decided on how many videos will be coming. That's tough for me to kind of figure out at this point. I am thinking at least 5 videos a week. Maybe a video almost every day. I'm not sure if that'll have an adverse effect on the channel, because like, will that annoy you guys? Well, like, oh man, there's a video every day. I can't handle this, But,
I don't think so.
Like, I don't know. The channels I watch, I mean, I don't necessarily care.
Channels I watch, they don't put out a video in a day. I'm like, God, where did you go?
Like,
why have you left me?
I just, for channels, when I think about channels I personally like I don't get bothered if they upload content more. it's just kind of like I'll click on it if it's something I feel like listening to. And it's pretty much that simple. So, you know, maybe I'm putting too much stock into this, but yeah, share with me your ideas. We'll see what happens. I'm trying to figure out like the balance between doing like YouTube shorts and actual videos. You know, I actually like making the shorts. Made a few of them. I think they're cool. You know, it's like just like a side thing. So we'll see what happens with that. But yes, more content is coming. I may have a video out tomorrow. It may take the day to kind of plan things out, and maybe it'll start Wednesday. Probably should do that. I'm always like, oh, I should get it out as soon as possible, right? And rush. But I feel like it's better to take my time and focus on quality. And what's cool is that since I'll have more time now, I can focus on both quality and quantity at the same time. Right. So, you know, maybe I take a day or so. Maybe this first week you won't see a video every day, because I'm going to take that time, one, to kind of catch up with my personal life, and trying to rest a little bit from the burnout I've had from working a lot lately, just to avoid not getting laid off, which ended up happening anyway. For the record, just like, you know, it's just where the world is at right now. A lot of companies are doing mass layoffs now. It's not like, you know, I did bad, right? It's not, I don't even have any necessarily negative feelings toward the company or anything. It's just world, you know, it's just circumstances. But this is where we're at, and I got stuff planned, right? I'm thinking about making a video that's Smash related that hasn't happened in a while, but there's something I want to talk about, and it's about the future of Smash Brothers. So that may be the next video that comes. But yeah, that's just kind of like, you know, me sharing my thoughts on what I'm planning to do. Taker610 has provided another super chat. Thank you very much for that super chat. Taker says January would be awesome for Switch 2. A January event or a January release? A January announcement. I agree. An announcement in January for Switch 2 with some Zelda footage, maybe, and you know, showing that game off in 4K. Maybe they show a few other games off in 4K, and then come February, there's an actual Nintendo Direct. They outline what's to come out throughout the rest of the year. They can acknowledge the existence of Switch 2 and all of that jazz and show off games with better graphics starting in February. And then come May, that's when the goods will come. Ooh, you know what'll be interesting? What if Switch 2 doesn't come out in May with Zelda and it comes out in March? And there's another game that launches with Switch 2 in March, because March it's still vacant. It's mysteriously vacant. It may just stay vacant.
But what could it be?
So we know
what in the world could they announce? Because they'd have to announce it.
I got an idea,
right?
I have a pretty good idea, actually. Okay, so
Pikmin 4.
Huh? That
Pikmin
would be
4.
That's what's cool. Pikmin 4 would honestly be really well suited for 4K.
That game come out next year or the year after?
It's coming out next year. It's slated for 2023. I don't think it'll be Pikmin 4.
No,
I would think. Actually, honestly, I think the one makes the most sense if it's coming out anytime.
Stunning.
Yeah, if it's coming out early next year, it's coming out with Zelda. Like, that's probably what's going to happen. But I'm going to throw out the possibility that maybe it comes out in March instead, and another game releases alongside of it. That game being Metroid Prime Remake.
Well, this seems even less likely than Pikmin.
Really?
Well,
less likely.
Maybe not.
No,
I think it would be more likely. I don't know. It depends. I would love it because it would mean Nintendo is positioning Metroid as like their huge graphical showpiece, like system seller type of series.
Right.
Which would be dope.
Right.
I think it's possible.
Think about it. They use Metroid Dread to push OLED.
Yeah, true. You know, the more I'm thinking about it, the more likely it could be.
Yeah, see?
But
not
I don't
so
think it's
stupid
super
after all.
In general.
I still think it's probably just to be Zelda
likely.
in May, if anything. If it's even coming out in the first half of the year. It may not even come out in the first half of
if it's even coming out next year.
Yeah. Charles Shadell seems to be kind of on my wavelength, though. Charles said it's in fact possible. 3 months or 4 delay. Grub being sure it would come out this year. And that's kind of part of it. Just that, like, you know, we got word that the game was supposed to come out really soon. for it to come out just a few months later, that I think makes me believe a little bit more. If they wanted to kind of save it for like the release of new hardware, maybe the information he had got conflated, because at one point maybe they were planning a Prime HD release to come out alongside new hardware, and it didn't happen. And actually, when we think about it, Bayonetta 3 came out this October, and it seemed like it was designed with a higher spec set in mind, and didn't happen. And also, we talk about Scarlet and Violet. Yes, Scarlet and Violet should probably be running better, but what if it's also possible the reason the frame rate is so bad is because they actually wanted to launch this alongside the new system as well, and it was going to run better on that. Granted, there's still more people going to be buying it on base Switch, right? And it shouldn't run like that on the base Switch where most people are buying it. But I'm just putting it out there. It's possible that both Platinum Games and Game Freak were developing for this new hardware in mind that was initially planned for this holiday release. But, with how the world has gone, with how things have shook out, with COVID, and then the supply shortages, the chip shortages, that hasn't facilitated an environment where a new hardware could come out for this holiday, but maybe by May time it could, or something, or March. I'm just saying, it's possible that initially they had that plan. Plans change. New hardware's not coming out then. Bayonetta 3 had to just come out for base Switch. Scarlet Violet just had to come out for base Switch. So the games aren't running as well because they were intended for a better hardware. And then Prime HD, which was also supposedly for sure coming out in November, actually comes out with this new hardware in March, which is a mysteriously vacant month, which makes sense for hardware to come out around then, because it would be a great way to get an additional final push before the end of the fiscal year. This makes sense, but there's other ways to make sense of it. It could simply be Game Freak.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could make sense.
Right. First off, Game Freak might just, dumb fucked up because of how much stuff they have on their plate, which I think is a more likely scenario here for that one. Bayonetta 3, on the other hand, I think they had a really ambitious perspective, and maybe I do think there's new hardware in mind, and maybe they were hoping this new hardware would be coming out sooner to release. But also, at the end of the day, these games are still going to come out for base Switch regardless. So you can't have a poorly running base version of the game. You just can't. And, I think if, let's say Switch 2 is out already, and Bayonetta 3 was running at a perfect 60 frames per second and 4K on Switch 2, and what it is running on Bayonetta as it is right now for Switch 1, the conversation probably wouldn't have been, oh man, these performance issues. The conversation would have been, man, Switch 2 can run this game, Switch 1 can't. But it still can't.
I don't even think it would have been that. I think people... Honestly, I don't think people would have been as upset with how it ran on Switch with Bayonetta. With Pokemon, it's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
But with Bayonetta specifically, it's perfectly playable. It's above 30 FPS, all the time. It's usually above 40, sometimes even 50. But it's not like it runs horribly. So it's a playable version of the game. If they had a really good version with the Switch 2, it is an ambitious game for what it tries to do. So it makes sense with how it runs on the Switch. Whereas Pokemon is ambitious, but it clearly not in the same way. It's more like ambitious for the series rather than ambitious for the hardware. And it doesn't look or run well.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. I hear you there. Thank you for the good luck wishes, Metroid Jones. I really appreciate that. And thank you for watching. Let's see here. Last thing, I think I'll read a couple things before I call it a night. Mr. Aztec Gamer, we need a Super Nintendo Switch. It's honestly not a good look that games are just struggling. First party games, in my opinion, baseline is 60 FPS 1080p portable.
What?
That's pretty good.
I keep seeing these people. They're like, have you seen the Series X and the PS5? Switch, absolutely insane that Switch can't do 1080p for everything. I'm like, bro, do you realize how weak the Switch is? Do you realize
the Switch is not that much more powerful than the Wii U, which came out in 2012? What's
It's
crazy
really
about
not.
the Switch is basically an optimized portable Wii U.
In portable mode, yeah, it's like pretty much like it's got more RAM and better RAM, but like GPU wise, in portable mode, it's about the same. That's why like most games run at like 720p or less, obviously in portable
Yeah.
mode, because it's like Wii U power. But like you can't expect even the PS4 doesn't keep 1080p. And the resolution of a game does not necessarily determine
Yeah.
how good it
He's
looks. I mean, look
talking
at
about
Xenoblade. That game runs at 540p docked,
he's talking about
but
the
it
new
looks
hardware
really good.
though. He means the new hardware being 1080p 60 FPS.
Oh.
I think in docked
Even
mode.
that, like, look at the Steam Deck.
No, docked
That
mode.
game
I think
has an
that's fair.
800p screen.
I think 1080p
They say
60.
docked or undocked?
Well, did you say portable?
I thought he said portable.
No. Oh, he said portable. Okay.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I don't know.
Every game 1080p 60 base in portable mode?
Okay, so it depends. I think so I mean it's circumstantial. For example, Bayonetta 3 should absolutely be running at a max 720p 60 FPS in portable mode for Switch 2. And I say 720p because I think it's unlikely that they are going to make more expensive 1080p OLED screens for that. I think maybe they go for 1080p, but they've already invested in 720p OLED screens. So why are they going to jump to 1080?
There's not too much reuse. Also, I kind of suspect that
also
there's
battery
going
consumption,
to be issues with
like power
DLSS.
consumption. Yeah, I just you know what I mean though. The thing about going with 1080p is that it's going to consume more power, right? And it's going to be more expensive to make. And the OLED 720p screen's probably good enough.
Yeah. And you have a more powerful system, so you're going to get games that are much more ambitious. So games like, on the current Switch might run very well at 1080p portable, but it's very likely that these games made for the next Switch won't run very well at 1080p 60 in portable mode. It's likely those be targeting, because consider this, with DLSS, it's likely that games will be targeting 1080p in docked mode, and then using DLSS to scale up to 4K. So you're assuming that in portable mode, you're going to hit 1080p is kind of interesting. But it depends on if they can get DLSS working in portable mode or not. So I don't even know. That's like a big question for me.
If something is taking full advantage of the system, I think they can accomplish far greater things than what we can see on Switch. If the system's approaching, say, Xbox, or let's say approaching PS4 levels, and then it has DLSS on top of that, I think we could see some pretty well-running, pretty impressive games.
Right. Do we want to waste it on 1080p in portable mode when you can push other features? I doubt developers will go for that. Some might. But not as a baseline expectation.
It depends on what it is, though, right? Because we're just talking about current Switch games running better on Switch 2. Then anything with a dynamic resolution should max out or get close to maxing out and should have as solid of a frame rate as possible.
Which will all be maxed at 720p, unless they do patches. They would have to patch the games to go above that. So having a 1080p screen, unless they patched each and every game to go above that in portable mode, it automatically would just cap at 720p anyways.
I don't need the games to have. I don't need it to go above 720p in portable mode, because keep in mind, even if the screen's bigger like the OLED style, that screen size for 720p is still pretty good. I currently
1080p would look a bit better, but not a ton.
Right, we're playing Switch games right now on big screens that don't even go up to 1080p. Right, so
yeah,
and I think those games could go up to 4K with DLSS. So it's not even really so much about a power thing, in my opinion. It's just in terms of the practicality of having a 1080p versus a 720p screen over 1080. It's just more practical. It costs less. It consumes less power, and the difference because of how small the screen is not that significant. Say it again.
Even the Steam Deck screen is only 800p. It's just a slightly taller 720p screen.
Well, what if they do a 900p? I don't know.
That'd be kind of weird.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. Technically, it's possible, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
I imagine they'll just keep using the same OLED panels they're using right now.
That's what makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
Because they're still relatively new.
Yeah, they look great.
And there's a lot of speculation out there that the Switch OLED is kind of like was going to be the mold for the Switch 2, you know? So, you know, with that in mind, the OLED might be a good look as to how the Switch 2 is going to look. It's going to be a Switch but a slightly better screen one with better colors. Obviously way more power in there. It's definitely
possible, like with the way technology has gone, there's no longer the need. Like maybe a few years ago, to make a more powerful Switch, you might have needed to make a bigger one, but these days, not really. Like the new chips are much smaller per transistor, like way smaller than what's on the Switch now. So technically, you can pack in a bunch more hardware in a smaller area. So they should be able to keep it the same size. So they could probably put new hardware in the shell of the OLED and just call it a day if they wanted to.
We'll see. But, you know, I think that's enough for now. Any final thoughts, Brandon, before we call it a night?
I will say you've not convinced me to get Pokemon.
I didn't try to.
You did not try to. I didn't get to see the comments too much because I wanted to keep the camera on. So, unfortunately, I will wait and I will see. And if they fix the game to an appropriate level where I think it is in a good state, I will buy it. And if they don't, then I will wait and see what they do next. But yeah.
Yeah, you do you. But I'll tell you that the game for me is very fun. I'm having a really good time. Yes, there are issues, but I'm completely overlooking them because of how fun the game is. It's not really ruining
Fair enough. You do you.
I will do me.
Glad you're having a good time.
I am having a good time. Thank you for being happy for me. But that's all for now, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll be seeing you really soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.